Up next, back on that 1951 Chevy Fleetline. Hey everybody, Kenny Conklin here from HobbyLinkInternational.com, and welcome to another YouTube video. Sorry it's taken a while to get this video out, but Nana is up from Florida. I've been out sick for a long time now, and she came up to help Kelly with a lot of things, and the garage is just going crazy, and the house is going crazy, but her and Kelly are doing a lot of work while I sit back and watch. So once I'm 100%, I'm sure I got a big honey-do list. But we are back on the 1951 Chevy Fleetline. We got a lot of work done, so let's get right over to the build and show you what we're doing. Well, it's time to move on to the next part of the car, and what we are going to be doing is we're going to be stripping chrome. That's right, we're going to be taking this chrome off of these pieces. I like to use super clean. The reasons are I don't like to use Clorox or anything like that. It's kind of stinky, it's really hazardous, and you can't reuse it. Same thing with oven cleaner. Oven cleaner really kills how I breathe, so I won't use that. But super clean takes off the chrome really quick, really fast, does a great job, and also when I'm done, I can pour this back in the bottle and use it over and over again until this product breaks down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour some of this into this. We're gonna throw the pieces in here, and we'll do a little timer like I did in a video a while ago, and you can check it out live if you haven't seen the other video I made. So we're gonna do what we did last time. I have the super clean in here. I'm just gonna toss the pieces in. I have my tweezers because the plastic likes to float. If you wanna put something on top of the chrome parts to hold them down, you can. We'll hit the little stopwatch and we'll see how fast it takes to take all this chrome off. So let's drop this in. Uh-oh, not enough super clean. Let's hit the start button anyhow. After the chrome took its bath, we have all the chrome off, nice clean pieces, and it only took us 7 minutes and 30 seconds to do a whole sprue, unlike the first time that I did it, where I only did one wheel. It only took a couple minutes. So this is my preferred method of removing chrome. Up next, we're gonna start with the engine. We're just gonna do the stock engine, and we're gonna start with this tiny transmission. Here's one of the reasons I like to use Plastruct Bondine. I hope you can see it. When you use Plastruct Bondine, it actually welds the parts together, and this little lip of plastic will come out from the seam, and then you could just scrape it like I did here with my knife, and usually 9 out of 10 times you won't have a seam. Sometimes you do have a little seam work, but it's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to finish up the transmission. Step 1 of the transmission is done. Seams are filled in and it's primed. Next step is I used Model Color by Vallejo, and this is oily steel, one of my favorite colors to use on car models now. After the oily steel was dry, I hit it with a flat coat, and then I did a light coating with the Rustall like we did in the previous video, and just made it a little rusty. I didn't want to go overboard with that. And the last thing we did was add Starship wash to the piece to give it that grimy look and rusty, and also there's some shiny parts in there just to give a little differentiation throughout the piece. After the Starship wash was dry, I hit it with a flat coat, and now I'll let that seal in and then play with it again a little later. Well, as you can see, we're starting to work on the engine assembly, and there's the 2 pegs that are supposed to go into these 2 pegs. So if we put the front one here, the back one doesn't mate up at all, and if we put that there, that doesn't mate up at all. So if you build this Fleetline, you're going to have to cut the pegs off, just line it up and glue it in place. We have the engine pretty much all together. Expect some fit issues and some gaps. If you're going to build this and make it a nice car, there's a big gap here. I had to make the holes bigger behind here to get this on, but since I'm rusting the whole thing up, it really doesn't matter. They're calling to paint this thing pretty much all orange. I'm going to do a little research and see. I'm not going to go crazy since we are rusting this thing up pretty well. It's not going to be a spiffy engine, so we'll see what we want to do with that. Well, we're going to be working on the fan. The front, you can see, hopefully, there's tons of flash, but when you flip it over, you can see how the fan is supposed to be, and then over here, it's just horrible. So I may do some damage to this, make it look a little chopped up and just rust it out. So this is another not quality piece on this kit. And here we are trying to put the exhaust manifolds in. This is also another part that you're going to have to force in. The 2 ends made up fine. The holes for the middle 2 ports don't mate up at all. So I'm going to force those in and then glue them. I have the engine all done up. The fit is very, very bad on this engine. I'm still looking for the colors, but I don't think I'm going to get too specific on them. Like I said, we're just going to rust this all up. I really chewed up the fan blade over there because the fan was garbage. This kit, I'm serious. If you're going to get it, don't try to make a nice kit out of it unless you're going to go get a whole bunch of aftermarket parts to make this kit better. So I'm gonna let the glue dry some more on this, and then we'll get to painting it up. I got the engine painted up. Now the directions call for a lot of orange on this engine, and that's not correct. Actually, I went looking for the 1951 engine, and it's actually a blue gray. So that's what I went with over here, and then some of the other colors I went with on my own. The fan, you can see I chewed it up a lot because it was actually garbage off the sprue. So I chewed it up. This is gonna get highly, highly rusted. So now the next step is we're gonna start rusting this guy. So we're going to do like we did in the last video. We're going to use the Rustall system. We're going to use some Ammo by MIG Starship wash and get this guy nice and filthy. I don't think I'm going to totally rust it out. We're going to leave some spots of paint, but we'll see how it goes. We're starting the long, tedious process of rusting. You can see I'm starting on the front. You can see on the silver there, hopefully on the fan blade there, over the blue here. So this is going to be a long process. If you want to see how the Rustall works, you can watch the previous video. So I'm going to finish the rest of this off and just show you the completed engine. This is where I'm at with the rust on the engine. I think this is where I'm going to stop. I don't want the engine to be one big rusty blob. I want some of this color to peek through. Like, it is rusting, but it's not totally rusted through. So I think we're good on this, and then the next we'll put the Starship wash in a couple places. I added the last pieces to the other side of the engine, the breather, the hose, and the distributor cap, and I also added in little spark plug wires. That's the first time I ever did it, so I know they're not in the right order, but I figured it'd add a little extra detail, so it was pretty cool. Now just to paint this up. Okay, we have all that painted up black and dusted. I painted the spark plug wires black, so I don't know if you can see them. I hope you can. Like I said, they're not in the right order, but it does add a little bit of detail and gives me a little practice detailing an engine. Next up, we're working on the rear axle and leaf spring assembly. Just be careful if you're building this kit. There's no locator pins when you put these 2 halves together. This half will made up. On my kit, it did at least. And then this part of the kit is off. So what I did was use Plastruck Bondine, put a bead on real quick, pushed it over and held it in place, and it stayed. So we'll paint this up and get this rusty too. We're all primed up. Next step is for our black base coat. And our black base coat is done, so now as usual, it's time to let this dry, and then we're going to start the rusting process. I got the rear axle and leaf springs all done up. Again, this was done with the Rustall, and there's a little bit of a wash with the Starship wash. That's an enamel wash from Ammo by MIG, and this is pretty much all done up right here. So we're going to move on to a couple more parts. Right now, it's pretty time consuming. We're going with the steel wheels. We got them primed up and in black and flat coated. I'm just waiting for the flat coat to dry up so I could start rusting these and getting these ready for the tires. And these are our tires. I don't know if you can see it, but it has raised lettering on it. Those letters are going to be taken off, and we're going to make these a little bit rougher. So what I'm doing right now is to make the tires look older. I cut all of the lettering off, and I just use my sanding stick to rough it up on both sides. If one side gets too choppy, that's just going to go inside the car. And then I used my Dremel to get the tires down a bit and threw a wash on there to make them look dirty. So we're getting the tires ready. While I'm waiting on the other pieces to dry, I figured I should start working on the engine compartment now. They went a little crazy with the wires. It just looks really veiny everywhere. I'm not sure if I'm going to take all those off. I may. It's going to be a lot of work and just put in a few little wires there. I'm just not quite sure yet. And if you can see this one, it really went crazy with all these little spider wires. I don't even know if it's supposed to be like that. It just doesn't look right. So I may take off these little spider wires and just leave the main wires there. But we're going to be working on this now. This is going to be hard to see just because of the color of the piece, but we're going to be using the Dremel with this bit again, and we're going to shave down all of those little wires, and we're going to put our own wires in there. But we're not going to put as many as they had before because that's just a little crazy. I like this a little bit because it's easier to use than sanding with by hand, and it doesn't leave too many scratches. Like I said, I could go over this with some Plastroc Bondine, get rid of those scratches, and I can also fine tune those out. I didn't like the direction that it was going in, working on the wires, just taking them off and then putting back wires. You can see in this one again how many wires there are, and what I wanted to do was actually make it look raised and look like there's wire there. I know it's not exactly right, but at least it gives it a little bit more detail. What I'm using is evergreen styrene. I just have the assortment package of rod and tube. I grabbed the thinnest one. I'm using that as a wire. And then the next biggest one up, I'm just cutting a little piece off, cutting it in half, and using that as the bracket that's holding the wire in place. So I'm going to wire the rest of this up, and then I'll show you that. I got rid of all the original detail, which was inaccurate, and I put in my own detail, which is inaccurate, but it'll give a little extra emphasis to the engine compartment. I actually did a little research on the 1951 Chevy Fleetline engine bay. Most cars I've seen had nothing on the side inner walls here, or maybe one cable going this way and one cable going that way. But this is going to be painted black and dusted up, so just wanted a little bit of interest inside the wheels when it's like this. We're going to be working on the tires. We're going to try to get this tire to look like this tire, an old beat up tire. I don't want them looking new. And they also have the raised lettering around all of them, and the raised lettering is pretty big, so we're going to try to get all that off. Going back to my trusty tool here, I'm going to start slowly getting these letters off because I don't want to ruin the tire. So let me get at that. Now, just like the last one, I took it down some, and then I'm just going to go to my high grit, well, it depends on which way you look at it, or low grit 80 sandpaper, and start taking this off. And I don't care if it messes up the tire, not messes it up, but makes it look all dull, because that's the way I want it to look. I just don't want to have to sit here forever with sandpaper to get this off. And then I get this look with the tire. It looks old and worn on the outer rim. I'm only going to mess with this a little bit on the back because it is going to be on the inside of the car, so you shouldn't really see it too much. I didn't take all the lettering off, so there is still some lettering, making it look old and worn. Then the next thing is I'm going to put the stone tool in my Dremel, and I'm going to take down some of the tread, just again to make them look older and worn. I didn't go too crazy with the tread, and I won't. I mostly round off the edges here to make it look like it's worn from turning and not rotating their tires. The next thing on the treads of the tires, I'm going to use Vallejo Model Wash, European Dust, and just put that all around the treads. Now we'll hit it with the blow dryer real quick to get it dry faster. It's a little hard to see on the camera, but the tires are no longer pristine and they're looking pretty good. So the next thing is to put the steel rims on here and we'll be good to go. These are the pieces I'm going to need for the next step of the process. I'm going to start on the rear axle first. And then once I'm done with this, we're just going to repeat this process with the other tires. I'm going to see if this actually fits on here. Again, this kit is very ill-fitting. This is supposed to fit on here and it's not fitting on there very well. Let's see if this part fits on here like it's supposed to. And that's not even fitting all the way. Okay, so I'm going to have to do some modifications. Okay, so we took the rust off there. We'll see if we can get this piece on now. Okay, that's definitely fitting better. So they actually have me putting the outer rim on first, then the axle retainer, then the tire, then the outer hub, which doesn't make sense to me. Should actually probably be building this first. Okay, I'm gonna have to widen that just a little bit. And there we go, now that's on there. Next we'll put up the front cap and see, and that's the reason I don't like doing it that way, because now it's not sitting on the tire properly. So I'm gonna take this all apart. I'm gonna put the tire together first and then we're gonna put it on the axle. After a lot of fiddling around with the tires, I finally got it on there. The rim's on right, it's on right over there. So we're just gonna make the 3 more tires and get these ready to go onto the body. We're gonna make the 3 more tires, this way they're ready to go onto the axles. And we got the rear axle assembly done with the leaf springs. This was only 2 parts. Then we got the tires. I added some dust on there from the Rustall system, so they're looking pretty good. They're a little wonky, but this kit is not the greatest at all. So we have some color variation. These tires are really horrible. They don't fit the rims properly at all, so it's a really bad fit. These say BF Goodrich on them, and the directions say Firestone, so I think maybe the wrong tires were put in here. I'm not sure, but mine don't fit the greatest, so you have to do your best trying to get these on. Let's move over to the next section of this build. We got all 4 tires done, we got the chassis done up, test fitting the axle on the back of the chassis, and we got the engine done. We're gonna do the rest of the parts, and I'm just gonna show them to you when they're on the chassis. It's the same basic process for everything, and I don't wanna waste your time showing you the same thing over and over. So we'll take care of those parts as we get them together. So this is where we are with the build. We got the front end in, and we have it all rusted up. I did not film this part because it was really a pain in the butt to put this together, and there was a lot of cursing, and the cursing is gonna continue. I do not suggest buying this 1951 Chevy Fleetline. It is a total bomb unless you're going to do something like this where you're going to rust it out and make it look like a crappy car. If you can see on the engine, the bottom flywheel here, they have it cut in half. So when you put it in the engine bay, well, before I even put it in the engine bay, this is the lower radiator hose over here that's sticking out. I may have to adjust that, but I don't think so. The only reason I'm saying I have to adjust it is because of how they have it cut in half like that. It's supposed to sit on the lower A-frame assembly. If I do that, it kind of sits in there straight, but it's a little off. And the other problem is, this is the bottom hole for the lower radiator hose. So if I put that in there all the way in, and when I test fit this, it actually is gonna sit like that where the fan is on the radiator, so that's kind of ridiculous too. So I'm gonna have to play with this and see what we're gonna do. I may just chop off the radiator hose and throw it inside the car or something like that, like they were working on it. I don't know, but we're gonna have to get this engine in there straight. So we're pretty much done with this section of the build. We got the chassis all done up, nice and rusty, looking dirty. We got our tires on, our rims on, all that other good stuff. And we also have our engine done. So the next thing is going to be to do the interior, and we're going to start that in the next video. Thank you everyone for stopping by to check out another video. If you're enjoying this content, please hit a thumbs up button on it. It actually helps the channel out a lot, helps spread it around to other modelers. This way they can check out the channel, and if they like it, they can come and subscribe like you guys have. So that's it for this video. The next video we should be up and running with the interior of the car, and that should be it. And then we're gonna move on to the diorama. Hopefully we get that done a lot quicker than this part went. So guys, gals, I'll see you all soon. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves out there. Take care. And bye-bye.